Good morning, everybody. Did you guys hear me? I said, good morning, everybody. All right. I think I heard some people walk in, so good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right. Hey, this is such a beautiful day here in San Francisco, and I'm so excited for this talk. So my name is Jabin Jabari. I'm the chapter lead for Sacramento and a current sitting at-large board member. I am retiring this year, but I look forward to serving once again in the future. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Simon. So if you've had the luxury or a rock to hide under to not know what Zap is, please talk to me afterwards because I like that rock. But Zap is one of our amazing projects, one of our amazing flagship projects, and Simon is the project lead for that. But Simon is here today to talk to you about our community, our OWASP community, and I want to leave him as much time to talk about that. So without further ado, Simon, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Hello, how are you all doing? There we go. That's not too bad. I was hoping that everyone would be too hungover to turn up today and it'd be an empty room and I could feel much better. So, as has been mentioned, I'm the Zap project lead, and I've got to get this in, but Zap is the world's most popular web scanner. How you actually judge that is interesting because none of the commercial vendors actually publish any figures about how many instances they have, and it's difficult to judge how many people use Zap and how many times. But we've got pretty good figures, and we publish those. They're all public. And we've been saying that Zap is the world's most popular web scanner for many years, and no one's contradicted us, so it must be true. And I've been making that joke for several years, so maybe I ought to have a new one. But I'm also, you may not know, I also helped start the Manchester UK chapter, and I'm on the OWASP project committee. So it might seem like I'm I'm an OWASP insider, which is strange, because I don't feel like that. I've often felt like a bit of an outsider. But maybe that's just me. For my day job, I'm employed by JIT, Just in Time, and so I'm, it was Distinguished Engineer is the title. It still seems weird to say that, but what does that really mean? What that means is I work on Zap. I get to work on Zap pretty much full time, and that's absolutely amazing. I think that's an incredible investment in myself, in Zap, and in OWASP as well. So big thank you to JIT. So this is actually my, well, I was looking forward to this event for two reasons. One, because it's the first big event I've been to since COVID, and it's really great to get back here and talk to people and have those great conversations and learn so much. The other reason I was looking forward to it is the very first conference I was ever going to go to where I wasn't going to be speaking. That didn't work out so well, did it? It was all good until Monday when I got the call to hear to say that one of the other keynotes had to pull out, and could I take their place? Monday. This is my first ever keynote. It may well be my last. I'm comfortable talking about Zap. I can talk about Zap anytime, any place with very little notice. A keynote is different. I think a keynote has to be a high level. And I honestly didn't know what to talk about. I listened to some of the other keynotes. They were much better than I hoped. And they were great because of the industry experience. And that's something that I don't have that kind of level. I focus on open source a lot of the time. But one thing I think I can talk about is OWASP. And one thing I can do is I can have a rant. So this is me having a rant. Sorry about that. Now, one of the other things, I wanted this to be a little bit more interactive. I don't want you sleeping. I want you to wake up a bit. So I will be asking for shows of hands, and I will also be asking questions. So there will be a chance for questions at the end, but I want you to contribute during the talk. So if you want to shout out, when I'm talking about stuff, that's fine, but I'll ask, ask for your feedback. Probably not enough time to take a microphone around during the talk, so shout out, please. But towards the end, there will be one slide towards the end where you get more of a chance. We might have a chance to take the microphone around if we still got time. but I better get on with the talk. So, OWASP, what is the point? In order to talk about that, we need to define what OWASP is, what's wrong with it, what's right with it, because there are things that are right with it, and ask the question, do we still need OWASP? And if we do, how can we make it better? So, OWASP, what is it? First thing I wanted to do, the first thing I did was I went to the OWASP.org website, because that should tell us. And it does indeed. Now, I'm not a fan of big loads of text on a slide, so this is the only one. The rest are very simple. They're bullet points to remind me what to say. But this is on the website. You can read it. It's actually not a bad definition. It's much better than I was expecting. But it's not the definition I wanted. I wanted to kind of get an idea of what components make up OWASP. So these are the ones I came up with. I think OWASP is the chapters, the events, the projects, the websites, and most importantly, the people. Is there anything significant I've missed out? That's a relief. So, the chapters. These are OWASP's local presence all around the world. And this is, I think, one of the main ways that the OWASP message is spread. And I helped start the Manchester chapter. And it was actually my introduction to OWASP was going to the Leeds chapter in the UK. And have we got any chapter leads here? Show of hands. Can we have a round of applause for the chapter leads? I think they do an absolutely great job. And it is a really important aspect of OWASP. And there's 448 chapters around the world, which I think is quite incredible. We have the global events. Oh, actually, I'm now remembering what I was going to say. Has anyone here been to any chapter events? Okay, 20% maybe. I was hoping it was a bit higher, but maybe 25, but a few of you have, a lot of you haven't. If you have a local chapter, I do recommend going along to it. You can learn a lot, and you can meet some really great people. So, the global events. I'm not going to ask who's been to a global event, because you're here at one. But is this the first, show of hands, is this the first global event you've been to, OWASP one? A lot of you, wow, that's a lot of people first time. Are you enjoying it? That is good, that's what we want to hear. So there are a handful of global events every year, like this one. Then there are regional events. They're a bit smaller, but there still can be, there can be 1 or 2 days, still hundreds of people turning up. And I was actually very pleased to see that there are a lot of online events. And I have to say, I was not aware how many online events there are right now, which I think is really good and really important in this post-COVID world. The projects. I'm biased, but I think the projects are really, really important. The projects range from documentation like the top 10, which you may have heard of, to Zap. And there's loads of projects, and I really think this is the main content of OWASP. This is the real value of OWASP. You're not supposed to be able to read that picture, by the way. That is taken from the website. I just needed something to put on there. But there are 276 projects. Do we have any project leads here? We have a few. Round of applause for the project leads. Project lead, the projects are the most important thing in OWASP as far as I'm concerned. Has anyone used any of the OWASP projects? Okay, that's most of you, which is good. That's what I'd expect. Has anyone used more than 5 OWASP projects? Fair few, 10% of you maybe? More than 10? More than yeah, we got a few. More than 20? No one more than 20. 276, anyone? No. Okay. So, the websites. There's quite a few websites, but really I think the main ones are OWASP.org. There's a screenshot there. The OWASP Slack, which is actually, I was amazed how many people are actually on there. And we have some project websites like zaproxy.org, OWASP SAM, dependency track. Are there any other major ones I've missed? I think that's it. There are lots of project ones, but yeah. So, how many people actually used OWASP.org? Quite a few, but it's looking maybe over 50%. Okay, cool. And then the people. And okay, I said the projects are important, but to be honest, the most important thing about OWASP is the people. We have the board. There are 7 people on the board. At least that's what it said on the website. I'm pretty sure it's right. If it's wrong, don't correct me until later. There are 8 staff, which is actually very few. Less than that? Okay, I told you, don't correct me. There are 8 staff, which is very few considering the number of people we're talking about. There are 6 committees. There are just over 6,000 members, and there are corporate members as well. I didn't get the numbers on those in time. I didn't ask, by the way. It's not anyone else's fault. There are 21,000 people in Slack. That's quite incredible. I was amazed when I checked that. And as we're getting right down to the bottom, there are the volunteers. Honestly, I think these are the most important people. These are the people who get things done. The board is there to set direction. The staff is there to help. The committee is there to help. But the volunteers are the ones who do things. Everything that is produced of value is done by the volunteers. And we don't actually know how many there are. Well, I don't anyway. I don't know how many Zap ones there are, so let alone across all of OWASP. And I think the key thing, you might think, well, most of those volunteers are members. I don't think that's the case. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure at Zap, most of the Zap contributors are not OWASP members and have not been, and never been. And I suspect that's true. Less of the chapters, but in the projects, that's probably very true. So we have a lot of volunteers, and we don't really know who they are and how many there are. And we have the consumers of OWASP projects and information. And I don't think we know how those as well. I mean, there's a vast amount of information out there, loads of people benefiting from OWASP, great work. But we have no way of measuring that. And I don't think we're trying to at the moment either. So, there's a lot of good stuff going on with OWASP, but there's some problems. So, I was told I shouldn't say that what's wrong with OWASP, I should do more positive. But, I'm going to be honest about this. So, there are some things wrong. Some of these things are things that I think are wrong. Some of the things I've seen other people say are wrong. And I've asked for feedback to get some ideas. Ideally, I'd have done a lot more preparation from this, but I essentially had 2 days to get this ready, so give me a little bit of slack. It's definitely not comprehensive, but I will check to see whether any of you agree or disagree. Chapters. Some of the problems with chapters. We've got a lot of inactive ones. 178 is a figure that I came up with. That's a lot of inactive ones. And one of those is the Manchester UK chapter that I helped to start. So, I'm not throwing stones here. And one of the reasons, I think, is, we're in a post-COVID world. Well, COVID's still around, but it's post the start of COVID. And, do people really want in-person events? I've not been to anything like this, but I've heard that some are run like independent social clubs. They do not appear to be associated with OWASP in any way apart from the name. They're very insular, and people find it difficult to get involved. And, just not the kind of places not what I think the ideal chapters should be. I've definitely had feedback that some of the talks at chapters are too basic. And some of them are too advanced, which goes to show you can't please all the people all the time, of course. So those criticisms I'm not too worried about. But there have been cases, I believe, where talks and chapters have been hijacked by vendors. Event problems. To be honest, I've actually seen very little feedback about bad things about events. So, and I've just remembered one of the things I was going to do is I was going to ask, anyone here got any other things they think are wrong with chapters? Want to shout out anything? Not enough. Yeah. I mean, we've seen how many inactive ones. Where I live, Manchester is a big city. There should be an active chapter in there. I haven't got time to do it. Other people were, but yeah, I completely agree that there are not enough chapters. So events. And I've had very little bad feedback about the events, actually. So kudos to everyone who organises events. But one thing I am aware of, if I can get the clicker to work, is numbers are very significantly down. And, partly again, it's post-COVID. Do people want to turn up to in-person events? And, the answer is quite a few people don't. And I think OWASP has quite a big reliance on conferences for income, which I think is a problem, particularly if we want more income to do better things. Any other problems with events? Not this one, of course, but other events you've been to? Uh-oh, everyone's gone to sleep. Hmm? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'll just repeat that because you probably won't be picked up on the microphone. So gentleman here was saying they're running a hackathon and attendance is right down. That is, I think it's a post-COVID thing, and I think that's a real problem. And it's a real shame because I think these in-person events are so important. So projects. This is something I'm kind of interested in. So there's a few things on here. There are too many inactive projects. 123 was my calculation, maybe more. That's about nearly half the projects. That's not good. I've heard people say there's too much overlap. I actually don't have a problem with that, but some people do. And too many gaps. So, there are some very significant gaps. SAST, so static analysis. I think there's one OWASP project which is kind of SAST related, but that's it. Which is kind of, there's a big hole there. There are reasons for these things. Projects are created by volunteers. There's no top-down people saying, the board doesn't say, we need this project, go and make it happen. It's all done by volunteers. So, there are reasons why there are gaps, and certain people, the volunteers want to create certain things. I wanted to create Zap. I didn't want to create a SaaS product. We have had cases where projects are too close to vendors. They're vendor controlled and they look very much like they're selling jobs. They're ways to make profits for those companies. And this is where we get interesting because there is a lack of support from OWASP as a whole. Now, going back a few years, it was really bad. I think OWASP was really focused on the chapters and the projects were ignored. Kudos to Andrew, who's turned that around completely. But even so, there's a little bit of funding for projects, but bugger all really when it comes down to it. Nobody is paid full-time to work on a project by OWASP. OWASP doesn't have the money to do that, but we are creating really powerful products which need people to work on full-time. And no real funding. That is a real problem, I believe. And some people have said that projects having their own GitHub orgs is a problem as well. Like ZA Proxy. We have our own GitHub org. We have about 35 repos. I think we can justify having our own GitHub org, but that's just something that I think is important. So I disagree with that. But anyone else, any other problems with projects? Feel free to shout out if you want. Hard to discover, absolutely. Now that, I think, comes into the website thing, which I'm going to come to, but I completely agree. Absolutely. So even when you found something, it's difficult to differentiate it from other similar projects. Completely agree. Not developer solution orientated. You are absolutely right. That is very true. Okay. So website problems. OWASP.org. Does anyone here like it? Wow. No. Sorry, I'm not a fan. The old one might have been worse, but it is badly organized. There are broken links, there's outdated content. It really is not great. It is not focused on any target audience. There are big problems with OWASP.org. Some people seem to think that projects with non-OWASP.org websites are a problem, like zaproxy.org. I might disagree with that, but we'll get back to that later. People problems. Do I really want to go there? Yeah, I want to go there. You've got to address these things. You've got to talk about these things. Might be interesting. So we do not have many staff, and they are overloaded. They're doing a great job, but there are huge expectations on them, unrealistic expectations, and they haven't got enough of them. They haven't got enough time. It's the volunteers who do stuff, and we have very few. We have very few volunteers who really get stuck in and create the product that we really need. The projects and the chapters. We need more volunteers. We have very few people focused on OWASP. So what I mean by that is, we've got people focused on chapters and people focused on projects. Like myself, I focus on Zap. I do not focus on OWASP very much. Very few people do it. And I think that shows, and that ties in with the website and the discoverability. It is not the staff's job to populate the website and keep that up to date. That's not what they do. That's not what they're there for. They're there to facilitate. We need volunteers to actually make that happen. Now the interesting one. We are the awkward squad. And the fun thing with this statement is, if you disagree, you just prove my point. But I think it's true, and the reason is, this is application security we're talking about. If you're happy-go-lucky, positive kind of person, you're not going to get into this industry. We are cynical bastards. We know the worst is going to happen because it's happened before and it'll happen again. Our job is trying to stop it happening, or if it does happen, to mitigate the effects. We are awkward people, and that includes myself. If you don't think I'm awkward, you don't know me well enough. So there are some big egos. There are people who are challenging to work with. There are less soft skills in evidence. Soft skills, the notoriously hard skills. But we come from a technical background. These are not, working with people is not what some of us do best. And we are not inclusive enough. Now, this is something that I think is very important, because we need a wide range of opinions and points of view. And this was touched on by one of the previous keynotes as well, and I completely agree. We can't have people with the same type of backgrounds, the same point of views. We need, in security, we need to think of all different aspects, and we need people with different experiences. I absolutely believe this. And I am not going to come up with a solution for this. And I'm not going to suggest one either. I'm a middle-aged white guy. But it's something we need to recognize, and we need to reach out to these communities and the underrepresented communities and parts of and get them to tell us how we can help them and get them more involved. A few miscellaneous problems for you. I don't think there is a clear and achievable vision from OWASP. Actually, there is a vision on the website: no more insecure software. Does anyone here think that's achievable? Realistic? Yeah, it's clear, but sorry, no, doesn't cut it for me. I don't think there's a clear plan. I mean, there's a lot about things about, we're creating products and we're, trying to make things less insecure, but I don't think there's a real plan. There's no real direction. And that means there is no clear strategy, apart from create more projects, do more documentation, that kind of thing. I don't think that cuts it anymore. And there is no measure of our impact or value. And this is very difficult. I'm trying to work out how many people are using Zap, and that's tricky. But there are things you can measure, and I think it's important that we try and understand the impact we're having so that we can see whether what we're doing is effective or not. And, I think we're all aware there has been brand abuse by vendors. Here we've got an automated scanner that detects the top 10. Yeah, right. We've got an automated box which protects against the top 10. No, you haven't. So, this is something which has been around for a long time. It's not an OWASP-specific problem, but, we should be doing more about that. Good news is, some things are going right. Chapters. There are actually still some very active chapters, lots of very active chapters, which I think is great. And new chapters are still being formed. I checked on the website, there's a whole load of them. I think this is really good. People are getting involved, starting new chapters, spreading the word. Having chapters all around the world scales so well. There's a limit to how many big events we can have all around the world. But the chapter thing, where anyone can start them, works really well and is very effective. Some of them are adopting remote access, which I think is really important with people not wanting to turn to events in person. So we need to do much more of that. And it is a great way to build local connections. That's what I've found, and everyone I've talked to who goes to chapter meetings say it's just so good to meet people in your area working in the same field or adjacent fields. You can learn so much. So please, if you have local chapters, go along. And some of the talks might not interest you, or they might be separate from what you're doing, but you'll still learn things and you will meet people and have great conversations. The events. There's lots of high-quality talks and training. Has everyone enjoyed the talk so far, this one? It is so good to meet people face to face. Having a Zoom talks are really good, but it's just not the same as actually meeting people face to face, people you know, people you've never met before. You just have so many more different conversations. I think events where you meet people and talk to people are really great. And I think the OWASP events are some of the friendliest that I've been to. I think they work really well. And it's a great way to build global connections, so you can meet people from all around the world, experts in their field, and it's really difficult to do that anywhere else. And honestly, I think the events are generally pretty good at avoiding vendor pitches. Projects. I've got to mention the top 10. And I know it's not a standard, but it is an industry standard. And it's one of these things that I think one of the other keynotes said, it's almost bigger than OWASP. And I don't think that's a problem. I don't think we should be worried when particular projects get so big they seem to be bigger than OWASP itself. We should celebrate that. And that has, the top 10 has brought more people to OWASP than pretty much any other, than anything else, I believe. We do have some world-class tools. I'm not just talking about Zap as well, of course. But we have some amazing tools produced by OWASP. And they really drive down costs. It used to be the case, and possibly still is, that there are some very, very overpriced web scanners. And I think they're struggling because they're finding it very difficult to show how much better they are than Zap. Maybe they're not even as good. So OWASP tools can really help the industry and can make sure that companies actually have really access to great things and can have get good value out of commercial products as well as free ones. There's a really low bar to start a project, and I think this is great. How many people here think we need 276 projects? I think we need more. I'd be happy with 1,000 projects. Okay, we don't want 1,000 on the website, but we should be throwing the seeds far and wide. We should try and get more projects because you never know which one is going to actually grow and become really important. 12 years ago, some developer with no security experience submitted a project which, would it have been recognized as being anything important? I don't know. There was a project called Web Scarab, which was the main OWASP security tool at the time. And it was nowhere near as good as Web Scarab. But it was called Zap, and it seems to have done all right. So, you don't know what's going to happen. So I would like more projects. And Google Summer of Code, I've got to mention this. I think we've had, we're not sure, but had more than 100 students go through Google Summer of Code. It's been brilliant. It's been a huge benefit to projects, and it's actually helped loads of students get into the industry. And that's been amazing, I think. Website successes. This may be a bit shorter. The fact that OWASP.org is on GitHub, I think is great. I think it's really important. There's quite a few repos on there, but there are actually links on most of the pages to tell you where to go. So, you know, we need to keep the source. We need the source for OWASP.org on GitHub to make sure it is as easy as possible for people to get involved. And a lot of it is actually quite data-driven. More so could be as well, but you know, I think that is important. You know, it makes it much easier to update and to maintain. And I think non-OWASP sites are actually really important. I think it allows projects to establish their own identity. I think once projects and chapters as well get to a certain size, they should be allowed to grow and grow in the way they see fit. And they shouldn't be constrained by OWASP. I actually think the top 10, which is on OWASP.org, should have its own website. Could be top10.OWASP.org, I don't mind. But I think it's important enough to have its own priority. You know, I think we should allow projects to flourish, the big ones. And people successes. Anyone can volunteer, which ties into the next one. There are other equivalent organizations, but to get involved, you need to be part of a company that pays to be part of those organizations. This is not pay to play. Anyone can get involved, including some developer 12 years ago with no security experience. You know, anyone can volunteer. We've had students get involved and make incredible contributions. So I think this is really, really important. On the whole, I think our community is really very welcoming. Which brings me on to the next point, the leaders list. For those of you who don't know, the leaders list was very big a while ago and had some problems. These appear to be no more. I don't know, and the leaders list is still there, but it's hardly used. It's dying. It should probably be put out of its misery. Whether Slack is a more is somewhere where the toxicity doesn't multiply, I don't know. But the fact that we're not having problems there, as far as I'm aware, I think is a really good thing. And it is a great way to get into the industry. You know, there's so many people saying AppSec is a really difficult industry to get in. You need experience, you need qualifications. Well, you do, or you can volunteer to work at OWASP and you can get your name known. And if you become, say, if you get onto the core team of the Zap project, you'll get job offers. No doubt about it. I've got a list of companies who said, you know, if you get any really good developers working on Zap, let us know, we'll hire them. We want to hire them. So, and that's just one project. Yeah, they don't care about qualifications. It's what have you contributed? What do you understand about OWASP and the project? So I think, you know, to get into the industry, OWASP is a really great way. You know, you get to know people, they get to know you. It is really effective. So, do we still need OWASP? Fun fact, if you take a pair of scales and you put a circle around them, it looks a bit like a face. What do you see? Does anyone see scales? Anyone see a face? Anyone see both? As soon as I put it there, I thought that and thought, okay, I'm going to leave it there. It's fun. So, have we solved AppSec yet? No one? Okay. Have vendors solved AppSec yet? No, strange. Are some vendors still selling overpriced products? Okay, quite a few yeses there. Have we made it easy to for developers to create secure systems? Crickets, I think there. That's nothing, by the way, in case you know, I keep on using British phrases which people don't understand. Is it easy for newcomers to enter the industry? Yeah, a few no's there. It's all a bit negative, isn't it? Can OWASP continue to give high-quality guidance? Yeah. That was a yes, by the way, for the recording. Can OWASP continue to develop industry-leading tools? Quite a few yeses there. That's good. Can OWASP continue help people get into this industry? Even more yeses. This is good. Do we still need OWASP? Bit louder, please. Thank you. That was a big yes, by the way, which is not surprising. If I can't convince people in the OWASP conference that we need OWASP, then I'm not doing a very good job, am I? So, can we make OWASP better? As I said, this is not an exhaustive list, so I'm going to ask you for your help again. Who are we trying to help? Developers. Anyone agree? Show of hands. A lot of hands there. Businesses? Security people? There's not much focus there, is there? We're trying to help everyone. I think we need a bit more focus than that, but how are we going to do it? I don't think we have that. Sorry? Protecting end users. That's a better one, actually. I should have had that one up as well. Yeah, maybe that one should be top. But I don't think we have that focus yet, and we don't understand. If we haven't got a focus, we can't understand what we're trying to do. Volunteering. I think this is so important. We need to make it much clearer what the benefits are of volunteering for OWASP. There are huge benefits. I know that. All the other project leads and chapter leads know that. We need to make it very, very clear. We need to encourage people. We need to show what you can get out of this. We need better support for volunteers. Is there anything on the OWASP website about helping volunteers, Harold? None that Harold can think of. So if you go to the ZAP website, it's not on the front page, but there are menu things for documentation and community. Both of those then have links to the ZAP contributing guide. And there are 8 to 10 pages on different ways you can contribute to ZAP, going all the way from liking the repo, that is contributing to ZAP, all the way up to how you can get onto the ZAP core team and everything in between. And that's just for one project. That's what we've got in place. We've got nothing like that for OWASP, which is a much bigger beast and much more confusing. So we need to help volunteers get involved. We need to promote OWASP leaders. We need to sell the benefits, and then we need to show these are the leaders who are doing things. Again, I'm going to go back to the ZAP project, zaproxy.org, but I know other projects are doing this as well. We've got a page where we list all of the key ZAP contributors, and it links to all of their social media sites. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, Mastodon, LinkedIn, you can find it in one place. We should have this for OWASP. We should have all of the leaders, all the active leaders. Okay, you can opt out, but I mean, their social media presences, people generally want people to know about them. So, these are the leaders. This is what they're doing. Here's how to get in touch with them on social media. We should absolutely do that. And I think we should have more initiatives like Google Summer of Code. Now, okay, Google are big, they've got lots of money, but I think we should be trying to encourage other organizations to do these kind of things with OWASP, because this sort of initiative, that Google Summer of Code has been massive for projects, in my opinion. I think it's really helped projects and students as well. Those are the kind of things we should be doing. I would like to propose a new type of leader. Now, I thought I was coming up with this the first time. I've been talking to people the last couple of days, and other people have suggested it already. I don't care. It doesn't matter who's suggesting it, and it doesn't matter what the title is. We can come up with a different title. But what I think it is we need people focused on improving OWASP as a whole. What do I mean by that? Well, not focused on one chapter or a project. Because at the moment, we've got chapter leaders. They typically focus on their chapter. We've got project leaders. They focus on their project. That's what I do. I focus on ZAP. I do not focus on OWASP. We need people focusing on OWASP. We need people there who are helping the volunteers, who are improving the website, who are trying to work out how things work together, helping encourage volunteers. You know, all the time we get people joining Slack and saying, "Hi, I'd like to help." And a few of us, you know, chip in. It's like, "Any idea?" You know, there's a lot to do. You know, and they might say, "I want to help a project," but usually they don't know which one. It's like, okay, what are your interests? What kind of skills have you got? You try and, you know, but we don't make it straightforward. We should give them as much help as possible. And if we had community leaders who are focused on that task, it would make it so much easier. And, you know, we should be having people who are thinking at a bigger scale, bigger than Zap, bigger than, you know, the top 10. It's what is the mission, and how are we using OWASP products, OWASP materials, how are we getting projects to work together? The projects just don't work well together because we're focused on each individual project. And I do that, you know. I know it should work better with various other OWASP projects, but I haven't had the time. If someone came to me and said, "Okay, I am working with this other OWASP project and I want it to work really well with Zap," I'll go, "Cool, what can we do? How can we help?" You know, I'll give them advice and guidance, we can talk about it, they'll go, "We'll work out we need some changes. Zap core team can make the code changes, we do that." You know, but we don't have the time to go and understand how we can work really well with another OWASP project. We need people at a higher level going, "This is how we should this is how we should move towards helping developers, keeping people, end users more secure." I think there's always been an interesting balance between OWASP chapters and projects. I think, as I've mentioned before, I think the larger chapters and projects should be allowed to have their own identity. So that does mean having their own websites, own GitHub organizations. I think once you get to a certain stage, it should be said, okay, you know, you have proved your worth, you've proved that you know what you're doing, and we're not going to constrain you by OWASP. We still need them to kind of be part of OWASP, be going towards the overall OWASP mission, but they should be able to be free of some of the constraints and be able to do things in a different way and become their own beasts. But yeah, they still, even, you know, all projects and chapters should still be focused on supporting OWASP goals. Yeah, so, you know, I focus on Zap, but, you know, people should be coming to me and saying, "Look, this is OWASP direction. What is Zap doing to help that?" I'm like, okay, yeah, we've been focusing on pen tests a bit too much. You know, okay, we should be realigning and making sure we're doing things which are directly focusing on OWASP goals. Because there are a million things to do, and, you know, we're never sure. Deciding what to do is always a bit of a toying cost. Like, oh, well, let's do this. We haven't done this for a while. So having, you know, guidance from above would be really useful. Outside engagement, not something I've touched on so far, but something I think is really important. I've said about vendor involvement in a negative way, but I want to talk about it in a positive way. So we need positive vendor involvement, and it's something I've already mentioned with JIT. You know, they are sponsoring me to work on Zap. But more than that, we're actually using a whole load of open source tools, and we're trying to engage really positively with all the other open source tool developers. And that's the kind of involvement we want. We want other companies to get involved. We want them to use OWASP products. We want them to create successful businesses on top of OWASP projects, but we want them to contribute back in meaningful ways. I think that is really important. And there's a huge number of companies out there that really, really benefit from OWASP's materials. And we want them to get involved. We want their money. We want their feedback. We want their help. You know, we want to make it easy for large organizations that find OWASP material so useful. We want to get them involved, and so they can help us make it even better. It helps them. It helps us. It is really important. And we should be working more closely with other open source organizations, Linux Foundation, OpenSSF, I think, you know, is fairly good there. But you know, we should be working Apache Foundation. We should be working with these other organizations much more closely, I think. We should be raising much more money. We really should. significantly more. I know this is one of the things Mark Curfey's been talking about. I know he's working on that. All power to him on that. I must say, we should be raising significantly more money. Why? Projects. I said projects are absolutely key to OWASP, and we need them to be funded. We should be paying people to work on the projects full time. We haven't got the money for it at the moment. That's why you should be raising the money. And I was saying flagship projects, and that doesn't mean give all the money to Zap. It would be nice. But we should be looking at it at a strategic level. And flagship projects are not necessarily the biggest ones. They're the most key to OWASP mission. So if it is decided that we actually need a new project because there's such a hole in the direction we're going in, then we should start, money should be raised to push into, to employ people to work on a new project. So that flagship project can be created from scratch. If it's that strategic, that's what we should do. More focus on significant projects. If you go to the current projects page, you will see 276 projects, whatever it is. Sorry, don't think it should be like that. We should have the flagship projects on there and the new production projects. There aren't any of those, but that's all we should see. That's it. Okay, there'll be more links to the other ones, to the labs and the incubator. But the abandoned ones, we can have an elephant's graveyard somewhere, which you can click through. It'll be there from volunteering or whatever. You can find it. Maybe you can resurrect something. Maybe you can pick over some bones to actually reuse somewhere. But those should be hidden away somewhere. Focus on the flagship and production quality products. And that means if you've gone from incubator to lab, you're suddenly no longer on the main page. That's a bit of incentive to actually get to production quality. And we should be helping people to do that. Clicker's kind of being a bit intermittent in case you're wondering. And again, stricter on abandoned projects. So, once a project's been seen to be abandoned, elephant's graveyard, get it out. Let's stop messing around. We don't need this stuff cluttering up the organization. If someone comes along and goes, but, okay, resurrect it. It'll come back. But for now, it's off. And stricter on vendor control. Where we see abuse, we've got to step in and go, this is not right. And if it's not sorted very quickly, again, it's out. Let's not mess around with this. Let's not, take no prisoners. I'm very Darwinian in my approach, by the way. It's red in tooth and claw. But we should keep encouraging new projects. We should make sure it is really easy for new projects. They're not going to be on the main page. We should encourage them. And once they start actually improving, then we should give them all the help we can. And projects should work better together. And again, this comes down to this kind of community volunteer thing, the idea we've got people higher up who are actually looking at a more strategic level and saying, these projects should work better, and come along and say, Simon, get a grip. How are you going to work better with this project? Okay, yep, we'll talk. Got something about projects and chapters, because I think these apply to both. We should support them more. Sounds obvious, I suppose, but it's not the board's job to do that. It's not the staff's job to do that. These are not, the board and the staff, that's not their jobs, and they're not experts at projects and chapters. They don't, some of them might have run them, but generally they don't. But we have successful projects and chapters. We should be helping each other. And I'm one of the successful project leaders. I should be doing more to help other projects. That's absolutely the case. And we need more focus on OWASP mission. As I mentioned before, we need people that are at this more strategic level, giving direction to chapters and projects and saying, hey, look, I know you're having fun over here, but what are you doing to support the main mission? The website. Sorry, I think it needs redesign. I'm not a fan. I think it needs some significant changes. I'm not going to redesign it, Wade. That's not my skill. But, so I'm going to stand back from that one. But I think it does need help. It needs to focus on newcomers. People are new to OWASP. It's like, what do you want? How can we help you? The target market, whatever we decided, what the mission is, that's the focus. And the focus on volunteering. You want to help? Great. Here's the funnel. Drag you in. There's no escape. We want to get people in, want to keep them in. Right. That's my rant. Now is a chance for you to have your say. We've got a mic that can be passed around. Show of hands. So we'd like someone over there.
I think related to vendor control is also customer control, because as a services vendor, we see a lot of customers say, do you test for the OWASP top 10? And it's like, well, we do penetration testing, so we can't test for like logging and stuff. And so I think that they're also, and I'm sure that vendors also have customers who ask, oh, does this product address the OWASP top 10? And I'd be disappointed in any vendor, of course, that says that they can address all of it. So I definitely think there needs to be clarification for customers. And I think part of it is that they see some vendors claim to address it, but there's also, it feeds into itself.
That is a very good point and not one I've thought of. So yeah, and that comes into the vendor abuse, and the vendors are trying to do the right thing and being very honest are actually suffering because of that. So absolutely true.
Have you considered the notion that you would have a project that was a consultancy that would, for a fee, support the successful projects? You would start with ZAP. It could be for hourly consultancy. It could be for maintenance. To make it easy, there would be no commercial version of the product. It would only be the open source product that would be supported. And it could be a really easy segue that could be done with legal review. It would take you a couple months.
That is a very interesting idea. I'm going to pass that one over to, not right now, but I think that's one for Andrew. People have come along and said they would like ZAP support. That's not something that the ZAP core team could provide. We don't have that capability. But I think you're quite right. It could be done at no OWASP level. So very interesting idea. Thank you.
Thank you for the good program analyzing. I have the two ideas. One thing, I'd like to know more about the OWASP project. As you said, there are various projects in OWASP. I think Wayfinder project is very useful for understand the OWASP project. But I'd like to see the kind of the OWASP project showcase in this type of event. I love when the vendors showcase too. But I'd like to, I'm curious about the OWASP project to be showcased too. This is the one point.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And this kind of ties into the fact that the project leaders are very focused on their own projects and working out how they fit in the wider picture. This isn't being done at the moment.
And the second thing, there are many attendees in this keynote. I think I'd like to light up over this event. We could become the volunteer to show this event's contents to entire the world. I'm personally from Japan, so I'd like to write a blog with Japanese and share this experience to Japan community too. Thank you.
That would be wonderful, yes. Thank you. Any more for any more?
So I'm interested in the saturation of security personnel to non-security personnel, not just here, but across the entire OWASP ecosystem. A lot of the talks well, I've seen an increase in talks focusing on dev-related activities. We want to do this for devs. There's tools here that are specifically for dev engagement, but they don't go. Like there's vendors that don't go to like conferences where devs would be at. So like Agile conferences, for instance, like the Agile Alliance. Given the request or not the request, but given the need for the website redesign, right? How many UI-related people, front-end developers who are not, how many front-end developers are here? Like people who specialize in being able to design websites and lay them out and find who really they want to target. Product owners, project leaders, like you were saying, but like not security project leaders, like specifically designed for the organization. So it feels rather insular without a lot of outreach to the broader development community.
Definitely. I think I actually stopped going to OWASP projects, events for a while because I focused on developer events. And I think we should, as project leaders, we should do that. So I think that is a very important point.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more?
On speakers, OWASP events don't cover speaker travel across the board as far as I'm aware. So if you want to increase the pool of speakers that you can have coming from organizations that may not be able to sponsor or support individuals sharing their thoughts, their ideas, you're basically cutting out a large pool of people that just can't travel to these events to speak and attend. So considering adding that back in to enable a wider range of people to come and speak would be helpful.
Definitely, yes. Any more for any more? Okay, I think we're about time, but I've just got a couple of slides left. So one thing I asked about was, do we need OWASP? And the whole point of this is, what is the point of OWASP? Well, I want to turn that round, and it's, we said, yes, we do need OWASP, but what does OWASP actually need? OWASP needs you. So OWASP needs volunteers. OWASP needs you to get involved. Everybody who's here, everybody who's watching this video, we need volunteers because they're the volunteers who get stuff done. Yes, we need some organizational changes. Yes, we need to change the website. But the main thing we need is more people doing more things. If we have that, then I think we're in a really great place. So that's the end of the talk, and that is the point of this talk. Thank you very much.